Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again because the first one wasn't good enough. Why? Because why not? I didn't touch on things like his quotes, being plagiarized from the film, and I'm out of ideas. Why are you laughing, Orojanagi Gaming? Whatever. Back to the video at hand. Allow me to dissect each quote and my best defenses for them, along with some other stuff like sharing the same voice actor. And the rules have changed a bit, too. This time, we'll be using KOF 2002's K99 as well. So, without further ado, let's get into it. If I remember correctly, there was an argument on how K99 plagiarized Tetsuo's quotes from the film, and I do have a pretty good argument for a lot of these quote-unquote plagiarized quotes. When doing research on what quotes were in the Akira movie, I did find that 7 out of these 16 quotes were in the film's Japanese dub. What were these quotes? Well, they should be on the list on the screen for you right now and translated into English too. My argument here right now is that a lot of these quotes are way too generalized to be considered plagiarism. My biggest example of these is mainly one of his 2 taunts and special attacks, that being and I've heard a lot of characters say, "I'm gonna kill you," or exclaim something to break apart over and over again. Allow me to say that these 2 quotes can't be plagiarized or ripped off, because if that were the case, technically Tetsuo would be ripping off other characters by saying those phrases. Then there's the victory quote, which is definitely referencing Akira. But I can certainly say that while yes, these 2 quotes are word for word, context and intent matter. In Tetsuo's case, he says it as a question rather than a blatant statement. In this scene, he's asking himself, "I can do this too?" rather than exclaiming proudly, "This is my power," like K99. Tetsuo is also just discovering his power and is in awe and amazement at it, while K99 has already shown off his powers and is just bragging about them. You also have to remember that Japanese is a tonal and context-heavy language, meaning that the tone depends on how the sentence is formatted. Tetsuo's tone is questioning, while K99's tone is proud, causing it thus to be not only sentenced differently, but it's just different altogether. Next up is the quote, which cannot be plagiarized because both quotes are formatted entirely different. In this scene, Tetsuo says, "Shut up! Don't order me around!" While in this clip of K99, he says, "Shut up! Do not give me orders!" You're probably asking, well, why is that, Ryan? To which I say, again, Japanese is a language that relies heavily on tone and context. In this context, Tetsuo is telling Kaneda not to boss him around, and K99 is telling Diana not to give him orders. You would think this would cause the sentences to be the same, right? Well, let me explain. Without delving into spoilers for the Akira anime, Kaneda was telling Tetsuo to knock it off because he was doing something that he wasn't supposed to do, while Diana here said to K99, "You won't get to the top if you aren't going to change." Not only that, but K99 and Tetsuo's tones are different, with Tetsuo using a more upset tone, while K99 uses a tone of frustration and anger. Not to mention, when you look into it, the relationships are extremely different, with Kaneda and Tetsuo being best friends, while K99 and Diana are purely business partners, with Diane being his superior in rank. Next quote is the
さてどうする
quote, which, like the last one, cannot be plagiarized because of different sentence formatting. In this scene, Tetsuo says, さてどうする while K49 says, さてどうする too. And while these are the same Japanese quotes, they're different because of tone and context. You see, Tetsuo has a mocking tone towards K. His quote becomes, well, what are you going to do? And because K49 has an annoyed tone, his becomes, now, what are you going to do? Because K49 didn't use well and Tetsuo's contraction, this causes this quote to be safe from plagiarism. Then we have the
俺だっていつまでもやられてんじゃねえんだよ
でも俺だっていつまでもやられてんじゃねえんだよ
quote, which means, you can never get to me no matter what! And my argument of context applies here as well. When Tetsuo says these kanjis to Kaneda, it comes out as, but I won't always be on the receiving end! And you're probably asking why that is. You see, the Japanese sentence,
俺だっていつまでもやられてんじゃねえんだよ
when used as a standalone phrase, translates to, you can never get me no matter what! Which is K49's phrase. However, when Tetsuo says this, he isn't using this as a standalone phrase. In the scene, that part he said was only half of it. Because in reality, he said, I could have handled it myself. I admit I got beat up that one time at the beginning of it. Which means this quote can't be plagiarized because it's part of a quote, and Japanese, being the complicated language it is, can change rapidly if a small section of one sentence becomes a standalone. The quote is also vastly different because when Tetsuo says this, he's being argumentative, while when K49 says this, he's being mocking towards his opponent. Because in context, the context being that the quote is used for draws or the timer running out, he's essentially saying, you didn't really win because you didn't knock me out. Then we finally have the
ガキども
quote. Unfortunately, I have no counter arguments for this one, because first, the tone is the same, both being used during an attack. Second, the context is the same, that being both are attacking someone. The only defense I have here is that when you call an adult a brat, it means they're immature, and K49 is calling adults brats, unlike Tetsuo, who is calling literal children brats. I know you're probably wondering why I didn't mention the
草薙
quote, and all I gotta say is that it can't be plagiarized because the quote literally has a different meaning and a different dialogue than what Kaneda and Tetsuo said. Let's do a comparison, shall we? In the Japanese dub of Akira, Tetsuo yells, Kaneda! Kaneda responds with, that's Mr. Kaneda to you, punk! In KOF 2002, K49 yells,
草薙
and what does Kusanagi say? Rather than saying exactly what Kaneda says, he says, that's Mr. Kusanagi, you freak! Because the wording isn't exact, this means it can't be plagiarized. In homage and reference, yes. Plagiarize, no. Another argument that I've heard is that Tetsuo and K49 sharing the same voice actor is considered plagiarism, but that isn't true at all. The idea that a character is somehow plagiarizing another character by sharing voice actors is entirely ridiculous, and I can explain. For one, I can name multiple characters sharing voice actors who are similar to each other. Starting off with our first example, Dio, Brando, and Hector Doyle. Their voice actor, Takehito Koyasu, who also voices Shingo in the KOF series. I still cannot believe these two share the same voice actor. What do these two have in common? Extremely large and muscular men with a common usage of blades in combat. Does that make them plagiarized? No. No, it doesn't. Here's another example that's much closer to home. Nameless and Jotaro Kujo. Voice actor, Daisuke Uno. Things they have in common, buff teenage men who wear dark shaded clothing and have black hair and supernatural powers. Does that make them plagiarized? No, not at all. And before you correct me by saying Nameless has a black and white hair, that's still correct because I said he has black hair. Knowing myself and how desperate I am to grow my channel, Orojanagi Gaming is probably watching this video. And if you are watching this video, my dude, hello. That was kind of cringeworthy. But anyways, sir, so this section is dedicated mainly to you. Why? Because I love debating, and your commentary on my last video essay made me so excited to make this script that you now have an entire section dedicated to you. Congratulations, I guess. I'm sorry. Anyways, as I was saying, if you have any other points, please absolutely say so, because it will be absolutely fun for me to keep doing this and talking about K99, who is, as you can tell, my absolute favorite character of the King of Fighters series. The shining star over K-Dash and Kyo Kusanagi and whoever that new protagonist is. I really don't like him. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video essay, sir, and this is SJ Raikou signing off. Peace! Oh, and just a quick side note before you try and say that I don't know this character's name or forgot it. I know his name is Shune. I just don't like him to the point of rarely calling him by his name. I like to call him Huge Hands Hans, actually. Hopefully you got that reference. Anyways, I'm signing off this time. Peace!